right. This moment I give to God. This moment I give to God to guide and to direct according to his will for my happiness and the happiness of all living things. It's impossible to do more than that. In that moment of surrender, in that moment of stepping back, there's the totality of my atonement. There is the totality of my healing. There is the totality of my yes. The illusion of things would have me believe that there may be another moment. There may be another time next week or next month where my yes might be more effective, where I might mean it more, or where I might have some closer relationship with the idea of what yes means to me. But in this moment, it's perfect. It cannot not be perfect. I'm simply saying yes to God right here, right now. My mind training is helping me not to judge what I think that should look like. The Holy Spirit responds to the slightest invitation. Even the willingness to say yes. Even the willingness to entertain that yes will bring to me the witnesses and the particulars of my own association with what yes means in a way that I can understand it and begin to feel, not with my body's eyes, not with my receptors, my fingers, although that may occur also, but begin to feel within me the stirring of God's strength, begin to feel within me the support and the love of my universal creator. It doesn't matter that my yes is half-hearted. It doesn't matter that it's just lip service. But if I find myself able to offer that yes from a deeper place, my ability to bear witness to it becomes more easily visible to me. I begin to notice the changes. It's like in lesson 200, Jesus says, many people say that I want the peace of God, but very few mean it. And you only have to look around to see how this is true. But the fact that you can even say it, the fact that you can even find yourself in the same room, in the same book, in the same frequency, in the same association with the idea of saying, I want the peace of God, it means it's kind of already over for you. It's like you're already going down the rabbit hole, or you've already turned around. And it doesn't matter. You may not be so consciously aware of what that means to you yet, but it means that the Holy Spirit is with you already. The opposite of that, of course, is the ego perspective or the world perspective, the temporal association of self that would do everything and anything to keep you separated from that notion, from that understanding, from those ideas that represent salvation. My teacher used to say, we're very late timers, early in time. We are those who have heard the call, and whether we have heard it with a profound distinction or whether it's just a small inkling, a small niggling that has brought us here. Each of us is serving the greater good in a way that's collaborative with the Holy Spirit's purpose. Learning to stay true to that purpose despite the seeming comings and goings of the world is where the mind training comes in to help us. And it's like, I love what Amber just said before. She knows the Holy Spirit sent her here. She knows she was brought here by the Holy Spirit. And it's like there is a knowing that is within you that you cannot deny. It goes beyond a suspicion. It goes beyond guessing. It goes beyond that point where I'm not sure if it was or it's sure if it wasn't. It's a knowing. You just know it through and through. You just know it, and nothing is going to change your mind about it. No way, no how. And I've had that so many times. I remember one of the most profound moments that I had with that was going up Mount Warning, and you guys probably all know the story, but going up Mount Warning, I knew I had to go up there. I knew it. My ego did its level best to stop me. Every situation, every event, distraction here, distraction there. And a year went past or more before I finally found myself going up there. But I knew I had to do it. It was something inside. It wasn't maybe. It was this knowing. And each of us has within us these moments, these sort of, I don't know how you would talk about them, but we have these sort of out of sequence moments, out of sequence time intervals where something comes along and you just know, like shit from Shinola. You just know it. You can't be told by anyone or anything that it's not the way you think it is, and you just got to follow it, and you can't explain why. And it's this incredible journey. It's this incredible relief. It's like finally there's a sense of liberation that you're doing something for yourself. You don't know why. You're just going to step out and do it. And it's an act of faith, right? It's an act of accepting that there's something else for you. It's like you can't really get off track if you understand the whole mechanism really well. You can't get off track too far because God himself put the limit on time and space, which is a limit on all of the parameters and all of the situations you find yourself involved in within the framework of your own story. You can only go so far afield before something inside starts to poke at you and tell you, hang on, this doesn't feel right. I think I'm off track, or I feel like I'm in a rut. This is the same, like nothing's changing in my life. Something needs to change. And
Big bro work phone P.
Oh, I'm going to turn that off. I have to turn the volume down. There we go. People calling. So feeling that call within you, feeling that presence within you, because that's what the call is. It's the presence of God, right? The idea that you could even contemplate that something has sent you here, or you've been guided here, or you're here for a reason, means already that within you, you're aware of the source of that reason. You're aware of the source of that guidance, right? And that's what you're actually looking for. Any good teacher is always going to point you to put your finger on your nose and get you to look within. It's like for many teachers of Eastern origins, even, you would go and sit with them and they'll tell you to look within. It's not about somebody outside of you being able to validate your journey or your particulars of your journey. It's about everything coming around again to put your finger on your own nose and say, yes, here I am, Lord. That's it, in every moment. So in this moment, all I'm ever looking at is my own unwillingness to say yes, and recognizing in that the opportunity to choose again. Right? The opportunity to choose love over fear again and again and again and again. Every day, every week, every month, every year, retraining my mind as I do so to begin to function along the lines that the Course sets forth and that I'm telling myself I want as my pursuit and my goal in life, which is inner peace. When my mind is at peace, the top-down communication, the higher to lower communication automatically flows. And you find yourself living in the beneficence of that divine guidance all day, every day. The top of my head's just going a bit crazy now, but the tricky part, I guess, if you wouldn't really call it tricky, but the part where you're learning to collapse time, the part where you seem to take time to get from where you find yourself to where you think you should be, that's a deception. That's not true. Just because you pick up a book of Course in Miracles and there's 365 lessons doesn't mean you have to complete those lessons to have an experience that shows you what you are. Right? And in fact, those lessons tell you that. But there's this illusion of time where, I have to be, it's going to take me a year, right? So you kind of have to factor in that Jesus is in charge of time and space. Jesus is in control of time and space. And in your relationship with him or through him, through the Holy Spirit to the Holy Spirit, which is what he is, the auspices of time actually get taken into account for you, and you're presented with opportunities to choose again that maximize your ability to enter in to a whole new frame of yourself, right? Further ahead than where you found yourself, and you won't even know. And that's when you have a shift in consciousness. You won't even know what's going on, right? So just for a funny example, and I used to make lots of experiments with faith, right? And at a certain point, when I was at the healing center, I had a relationship with the woman there, and it was like we tell ourselves that it's on a higher level. You know, the purpose for this relationship is on a higher level, and then all the dirty laundry gets sorted out in the meantime of things that aren't really part of that. But in the sorting out, we had this thing where we would also always go for coffee, and after session, right? So we would do session for 3 or 4 hours in the morning. There'd usually be an hour of meditation in the morning, a couple of hours of discourse by Ted, and then another hour or two of meditation, lunch and whatever. And then we'd go for coffee for some strange reason. It wasn't my thing, but it was her thing. And I got into this coffee ritual, and I realized that when I would have coffee, I would get anxious. It would bring up all this anxiety energy. And one of the experiments I made was having more coffee, right? So most people would sort of automatically think, I'm going to have coffee makes me anxious. I'm going to stop coffee for a minute and just because I don't like the feeling of that anxiety. But literally I realized, well, if it brings up this anxiety or whatever, all anxiety is existential, right? It's like whatever residue is in me, let me use whatever the particulars of the relationship I have with coffee, this is water, but with coffee, as an idea in my mind to look at what it is that I'm really actually saying about what I want, right? So rather than resisting it, pushing it away, judging it, deciding against it, I had more coffee and stronger coffee, and I would get really antsy, and I would use that sort of energy for prayer, right? So where's Carrie? You sent me that thing the other day and you said, I've got all this energy and I don't know what to do with it, right? That's part of it. You have this energy. You start to go through healing. You start to go through shifts in your relationships, and all of the grievances and stuff that you had prior, which kept that energy down, which is your natural expression, by the way. It's not, we call it energy just as a way to talk about it, but it's your natural light. You're trying to suppress your light and your joy and your happiness according to fitting in and keeping an identity as you think you should be, etc. But literally, when you start to forgive, the lid comes off and all this stuff comes out, and all the reasons that you wanted to hold a grievance in the first place are no longer valid. And that light starts to shine in you. And because you're not trained to allow yourself to work with it and to express through it and everything, what happens is you get fearful of it and you try to shove it back down again, right? Which is a rookie error in mind training, or it's not really an error, but it's just immaturity of mind training. As you progress, you'll learn to use that energy. You'll learn to work with it and to allow it and to breathe through it and to pray through it and all of that sort of stuff. And it will just find its own natural expression. Right? It will just become part of your cosmic makeup, if you like. Right? But initially, when it's too much, and I've had it where it's too much, use it for prayer. Right? If you don't know how to use it or facilitate the release of your light and the expression of your light unilaterally, use it for prayer and ask the Holy Spirit, keep this for me. Take all this energy for me, because I don't know what to do with it and I feel like I'm going to jump off a bridge or something, right? And it gets like that. And you fall into prayer, and the energy of how you feel, right, relates directly to how deep in prayer, deep in integrity of prayer you can go, right? So it's like when you're fearful, right, a little bit, your prayers are just not much. There's a situation you don't like, and it's like, oh, help me with this, God, whatever, whatever. But when you're in a really bad situation, that fear comes up and you really feel, you're praying like anything. You're just like, there's no tomorrow, right? And that's really where you want to go, because that's the heartfelt place. You really feel it. You're feeling it, right? What you're feeling, you equate as fear. But if you can take the label off it and just say, this is energy, I'm feeling all this energy. If there is only God, as above, so below, I'm actually feeling the presence of God, but I'm ill-equipped to process it in my life, right? I'm immature in the ways of mind training. I remember I used to have all these things. I would fall down for years, right? I would have energy rising up in me and I could feel it coming on, and I had to learn to work with it and quickly, and it still took me years. But literally, it would feel like someone was kicking my knees out from under me. There'd be these rushes of energy, and boom, my whole body would be like somebody pulled the plug and I'd just collapse to the ground. And sometimes that would instigate a sense of concern and worry and why is this happening and all of these things. But luckily for me, I was in a place where I was supported with what was going on, and everybody just constantly kept telling me, don't worry about it. Just go with it. Let it happen. Feel it. Just go with it. Stop trying to resist it. And it took me some years to not resist it. And it was at the point where I began to feel the subtle energy of, I don't know what you'd call it. Like it was like a pressure, right? And it would start to happen inside, and I could feel it in my consciousness, this sort of internal pressure, like a building up. And I knew I was going to fall down. And it was so quick. I'd feel this sort of like pressure coming on, like this, and then boom, there would be a shock wave, and I'd hit the dirt, right? And I learned to breathe and to work with that pressure as it was happening, so that I could prepare myself for not only not to fall down, but instead to fall up. Right, which is what Ted would say to me. Ted said to me once in session, he goes, Dave, you got to learn to fall up. And I didn't know what he meant about that. But it's literally working with the energy, working with the light. Because the light wants to be released. The light is yearning to be released. Right? And we've had, if you want to look at the idea of reincarnation per se, we've had lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of keeping it suppressed, keeping it down, living in dark, living in limitation, and sabotaging all our own best interests and everything. So as soon as you start in a process of releasing that inner light, it's like, look out. You don't know how that's going to happen. You don't know what form it's going to take. It's like you forgive something over here, and a huge snowball starts to roll downhill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because the little tiny relationship or situation in that relationship that you heal is repetitive throughout your entire spectrum of your experience in the human condition, right? So let's say you have a factor or something where you're at work and you keep sabotaging your own best interest to get a promotion or whatever. It's a relationship, right? You can use anything. It's a relationship. And you see what you're doing there, right? You see, oh shit, I keep doing the wrong thing and I'm missing out on the promotion, da 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 da. Now, if you can take that little thing that you see and apply it to every relationship, you'll see how you do that specific to every relationship. Your spouse, your interests at hobbies and other things. And it transfers across a whole spectrum. So whilst you think that you're just healing a little work situation, what's happening is you're healing an energetic signature that is erroneous or that is miscreative and affecting you across the board. It's not like there's a separate little bit here and a separate little bit over there, right? You're snipping out something like a frequency wave that's no longer useful to you. You're leaving that little gap open and the Holy Spirit flows in to fill it with peace, right? But the release of the energy, which is what you've tried to suppress, that represents that little bit getting snipped out or forgiven, it has the power and the backing of all of those relationships across all of time for you. So don't be surprised if it feels like everything's going out of control. It's quite bizarre. Like I had a whole release, and I talk about this one quite a bit too. But I had a whole release in the aisle at Woolworths, and I was looking at baked beans, and I couldn't decide between the ham sauce or the cheesy sauce or whatever it was. And all of a sudden, I didn't know which one to choose because I had very little money. And for some strange reason, that was perplexing. And I must have chosen, I don't even remember, or if my mind just kicked in by itself, I must have just chose to sort of say, fuck it, I don't care, I'm just going to pick beans. But whatever occurred there, I had this massive release and I started wailing and crying and everything in the middle of friggin' Woolworths. And everybody moved away, like all the people, nobody even come up and pat me on the back or nothing, But I knew I was just going to stand there till it was done. I knew it was energy. I could feel it coming up. I could feel this like, oh, I'm going to cry. What the hell? I feel like I'm going to have a moment here. But I just let it happen, right? And that's how you work with the energy. You just got to let it happen. Stop trying to push it back down for a better time or a better location or a better place. There's never going to be one. The Holy Spirit just gives you these moments of grace where even in Woolworths, it's going to be perfect. You're not going to have to worry about it, And it's surprising, actually, because in where I was in Woolworths in Byron Bay is a very spiritual sort of community. And I was quite surprised that nobody came up to offer consolation or, thing. It was kind of, like let go of expectations there. But, so all that energy and you see it happening, right? But it's literally the presence of the spirit within you or the light within you trying to break free, like answering the call, right? And you have to realize, well, I've tried to maintain and contain my own self-expression to keep together, and it's hard work, right? To keep together through a process of judgment, my own self-identity, right? Whilst at the same time being completely ignorant to the fact that I don't even really know what I am. It's like I'm making up this static condition of myself, trying to keep it as one thing, and it's actually turning in on itself and collapsing in on itself and doing me harm. It's like, where's Amber? It's like going through a miracle for cancer. I had the same thing when I was 20, 27, 28, diagnosed with cancer. And it was several years after that diagnosis that I finally had my miracle. And when my mind had finally reached a point where I could integrate the principles so that when the miracle occurred, I wasn't going to corrupt it again and turn that cancer into something else. I remember Dr. Fritz, like it's a short little window into what I'm talking about, but Dr. Fritz was a faith healer in South America who used to inhabit or channel through the body of, I forget his name now, but some guy up in the mountains. And in South America, there's very little healthcare, or if at all, and everybody lives by faith. right? Everybody lives by faith, but people would be like from the morning to the night, there would be long queues of people up the mountain, and tourists would come from all over the world, like in busloads, to be healed by Dr. Fritz. And the same with John of God and whatever, these faith healer sort of guys. And whether you believe that they're all a load of baloney or whatever, but I have witnesses to the truth for Dr. Fritz. I don't know about Dr. John, but he would tell people, I can't heal you if you're just going to go back out and do the same thing that got you the disease in the first place. You have to begin to enter into a whole new way of seeing things so that you can actually begin to work with the light and begin to go with the flow of everything that's going to happen once this healing occurs, right? It's like Jesus would say, go and show yourself to the priest, right? Not go and show yourself to everyone you know, all your workmates and your family and friends. Go and show yourself to the priest, because the priest is then going to validate the miraculous nature of the healing and give you some sort of context, right? And back it up, reinforce it, which is what you need. It's mind training. It's a form of being able to come to a final understanding that, hang on a minute, something not of my own making healed me, right? I was participative in that as, let's say, the forgiver or the acceptor of God's forgiveness for me, but it wasn't of me. It had nothing to do with me. I gave up. Right? So all of this stuff, you just look at it as energy or metaphysics, don't fuck with metaphysics. That's what people say. But with the advent of mind training, it becomes much easier to see what it is that you're doing as far as corrupting your own best interests, and to make ongoing decisions not to do that, or to do only what it is that is in your own best interests. It's like you're always choosing for God rather than against the ego. You're always choosing for your holiness rather than against your denial of holiness. But you have to admit to that denial first. You have to see what you're doing before you can make changes. If you can't see what you're doing, you will never be aware of the witnesses to the truth when they show up. You'll walk around thinking, well, I've been praying, but nothing's happening. Nothing's showing up for me. No guidance, no nothing. Right? That's because the foundation of the prayer is based on falsity. It has to be based on the truth. Oh, I'm doing this to myself. It's like Jesus says in the Course, the secret of salvation is that you're doing this to yourself. You chose to come to this world. You chose to have this experience. You chose to participate in the idea of denial, all of that sort of stuff. And we'll wrap it up all together as the tiny mad idea, right? If you take it right back to the Course, and it says, into eternity where all is one was a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. And it's like, well, that's the origin point that I want to find in my mind. Where did I remember not to laugh? Not Dave, not the avatar Dave that's talking and saying things, but the mind, the Christ mind in me that still has investment in this healing process. Because the healing doesn't have to be a process. It can occur in its entirety here and now. Salvation is not beyond immediate learning, right? That's where the mind training comes in. Let me be still and know that I am God, right? Now, you can't ever actually find the point where you remembered not to laugh, where the tiny mad idea is. Jesus has already atoned for that through the resurrection. All you will find in your own mind, because there is only one mind, all you will find is this kind of place where there seems to be an emptiness. There seems to be something not there, like a void or a darkness or an abyss or something, which is not really an abyss, right? He talks about it as the little gap or the bridge, but you'll find that in your meditation. And it brings up a moment of terror, right? It brings up a moment of extreme fear. It's actually the place where, if you can imagine that the very first experience of separation that ever occurred was where you took faith in that belief that you could be separate, or you put your value in that belief, and then was cast out, let's say, of heaven, not really, but into the dream. right? That was scary, but you literally go back, pardon me, through the same portal or the same energetic place in mind where you find yourself coming in, right? So the only way out is back the way you came, right? Being separated from God in the first instance was incredibly terrifying. It's like a little child in the supermarket lost from their parents. All of a sudden, there's that sense of separation, and you don't know what's going on. Everything familiar is suddenly gone, and you don't know what to do. There's this empty sort of thing. How do I react? Right? And then little children react by screaming because that's how they get attention. That's how they let you know that they need something or want something or, So, but literally it's the same sort of thing, right? So the whole process of healing then is nothing more than allowing what's been suppressed or what's been denied to be re-revealed to you, right? Which kind of makes things, brings up a sense of more anxiety because all of a sudden what Jesus is telling you becomes more true. It's like, shit, I had a moment of healing. I had a moment of forgiveness. That verifies God. It verifies the miracle. It verifies some sort of higher power, whilst at the same time Jesus is telling me, I've denied that. I'm doing this to myself. That's a no-win situation for me in the immediacy of the moment I realize it, but it does give me ultimate hope, right? All of a sudden, I realize I have been doing this to myself and I have no way out but to stop doing it to myself. Just stop it. What was that guy, Tyna, the comedian? Just stop it. That I forget his
Bob
name.
Newhart. Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart. That clip, that's the whole Course in Miracles. Just stop it. Like we have to post that in the link down from this thing. Like it's so funny. And when you see it, it's like, well, I'm doing this to myself, and it's like, well, just stop doing that. Instead of stop doing that, actually, just do only this. Right? Do this. So, but yeah, it takes a minute. It's not that the healing takes time, but the recognition of the power of that healing, the recognition of the acceptance of that healing, that's what seems to take time. Because on one hand, I want my problems fixed, but on the other hand, I don't want to realize that I'm doing it to myself, right? So in essence, I want a better dream. I want a better life in the dream, but I don't want the dream to end in its entirety. I want all the good stuff I like, but I don't want the stuff that upsets me. So when Jesus says, give up the world and follow me, he doesn't say give up the bits you don't like. He says, give up the world, the whole thing. Come home. This world is not your home. Right? Now, to comprehend that, you have to have an experience. You have to see the world disappear, which is why Jesus says, a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. Necessary. You have to have that experience, right? The whole of the course is heavily worded for experience, experience, experience. And literally that's whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to bring yourself to that point where you're willing to say yes to it. Right? Now, that's going to happen incrementally and gradually as you go through this purification process and whatever, or it can happen all at once if your life's a total mess, perhaps. It's usually the case that people who've got nothing left, like collapse in on themselves in prayer or whatever. But for each of you, I have no clue what that's going to look like. But I know that at any point, regardless, whether you've had an experience already or whether you're hoping to have one in the future or whatever that is, it's only ever going to be here and now. And the mind training is going to be required anyway to purify the mind. If you have an experience first and then enter into mind training, that mind training purifies the mind in order for you to be able to integrate and ground the experience. Right? So you can have a spiritual experience from the top down or the bottom up. Right? And in between the process of consciously walking the path, let's say, you may have many phenomena and experiences along the way, lights and all sorts of stuff going on, and things moving and appearing and disappearing and all sorts of things. But I got a message from Annie. But all of those things are only indicative of the fact that you're headed in the right direction, you're doing the work and etc. and all of that. But you can't serve two masters, right? So you have to make a decision. What is it I really want? And so with your mind training, that's all you're ever looking at. Am I really saying yes? Am I really saying yes? Or am I seeking but not really wanting to find? It's like, where is my heart? Where is my devotion? Am I truly, and like, man, like, don't judge yourself, because I mean, we're all just liars. We're all just here saying one thing but meaning another. We've trained ourselves so well in that, like, but it's like I'm always looking at my yes, but actually offering my no. And in the moment you actually offer a true yes, you'll see everything disappear and you'll be back in the light, right? But it takes everything. You can't value even one grain of sand. It's like the sadhus give up the world like they have nothing, no worldly possessions. And it's not that I'm saying give up your house, your job and everything and just walk naked into the street, but mentally, right? So Jesus says in the Course, if there's something in the world that you cannot share with everybody else, why would you want it? Am I living selfishly and just this is all for me and you guys keep away, don't touch my things, and you can't have my money, you can't be part of my life only under these conditions? Or am I just living from yes? And Tyna was telling me this. Who was that? Oh, she's gone. So the guy that wrote the book you were talking about before.
Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment.
Right. So that might be a good book to read, like, and it's much
Yeah.
like Yes Man, Jim Carrey, where Jim Carrey goes to that conference and he learns to say yes to life rather than no. And his yes propels him into all sorts of situations where to him, miracles are happening. To me, it's just like, well, of course, because that's what happens when you stop saying no. But to him, miraculous things are happening, and also opportunities to see more about himself and his own nature, right? It's not just that things get better, but you also get to see why things get better, right? It's like, oh, well, I've stopped saying no. I'm just going to say yes, and I'm going to learn to work with and to participate with everything that represents that yes as it comes to me, even if I don't understand it, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it seems to be outside of the spectrum of my normal affairs, right? And he meets that woman who's completely liberated, free spirit, the girl on the moped in that.
Mhm.
And she terrifies him at first. He's never met such a free spirit. He's used to controlling everything and saying no and keeping his little box and his little life all together in certain parameters. All of a sudden, this girl's just blowing in the wind, and she says, "Get on the back of my moped," and all of a sudden his whole life changes, and it terrifies him at first, right? But it's like anything. At first, people are fearful of what they don't understand. You understand limitation perfectly well, and you play the game of hating it. I hate limitation. I hate restriction. I hate rules. I hate regulation. No, you don't. You love that stuff because it gives you the opportunity to play the part of someone who complains and someone who feels imprisoned and trapped and all of that sort of stuff, whilst at the same time decrying it, as an impingement upon your freedoms and liberties. But literally, liberty is a state of mind. Freedom is a state of mind. It's like you could be John the Baptist sitting in prison there and like still perfectly free in his own mind in the full acceptance of the divine part he's playing in a greater plan. It's like Nelson Mandela in prison and like you're not really in prison. But in people's daily lives, we seem to have these situations that represent some sort of imposition, whether it's political, social, whatever, this imposition on what I think my life should be about. And we love that. It gives us the opportunity to feel something, to feel a victim, right? And hold that against God. God's doing this to me. Why is this happening to me, Lord? Right? Well, it's not happening to you. Freedom is a state of mind, and the price of perfect peace is eternal vigilance, right? Once you surrender all your own preconceived notions about what you think life is and how it should be for you and everything, based on the idea that you don't even know what the meaning of life is, so why have any kind of idea about it in the first place, then all of a sudden life becomes this kind of free-flowing river, and you just find yourself going around this bend and up that hill and down there, and everything fulfills itself. Everything's perfect. Like, if you need money, it just comes. If you have to get somewhere, you just find yourself there. And like, you can't explain it to people that are used to trying to control things all the time and manage things and try to get whatever. And literally, you just take the first step. You just say yes. And it's like, I have an idea, like I'd like something to happen, or I'd like whatever. I don't know how that's going to be, but I'm just going to let go, and I'm going to be shown. If it's in the greater good, it'll happen. If it's not, it won't happen. And there's an acceptance to that. Personally, I've always found that it happens, but usually, almost always, never in the way that I thought it would happen. It's always some other way. And the some other way usually brings up that 11th hour moment of anxiety, because you want to live in faith and you're telling yourself, I want to trust the universe and all of this sort of stuff, trust God. But the process of healing means that I have to undergo all of the reasons why I would tell myself that in the first place, and I have to let those go. I wouldn't need faith. I wouldn't need to live in faith if I was in the acceptance of the fact that God is my provider. God goes with me wherever I go. I don't need anything. I wouldn't even have to tell myself that I'm just going to let go. Right? And that becomes kind of preposterous. So like Jesus says in the Course, finally in the ladder of prayer, where prayer becomes sort of like this argumentative, bargain-seeking thing at the beginning, just lip service, to this kind of more inclusive and more, what would you call it, more surrendering thing, to finally you just get to thank you. Finally, you're just living in a state of constant gratitude for everything that occurs to you in your life, because you're suddenly aware that even though you don't know what the meaning of life is, you're actually part of it. It's happening to you whether you like it or not. If you don't try to control it, you won't have the anxiety and the stress of trying to manage it, control it, and everything like that. And you'll find that the incredible journey of your life just carries on like you can't even really talk about it, right? You can't even, it's like, you don't have to tell a fish that it lives in the ocean. It doesn't even imagine what the ocean might be. The ocean and the fish are not separate from each other. The fish doesn't conceive of some other kind of thing that it could be in other than the ocean. If you were to tell the fish, well, here's the fish, you're the fish, and this is the ocean, there's two separate things, the fish would think you're crazy. Because the fish is not separate from its environment. It's not separate from its surroundings. It's not separate from that which sustains it. It's part of it. It's like Aboriginal people in my country. Nowadays, they sort of, the Aboriginal people have lost track of their traditional roots and things, and they've become more polluted by the ways of Western society. But traditional Aboriginals tell you that they don't own the land, they belong to it. They're part of the land. It's their spirit walking. It's their whole thing. The land and them are not separate. Right? It's the same with the Native American Indians, I believe. They believe that they belong to the land. They're part of it. They don't own anything. Owning is not a concept that traditional peoples generally have. Everything is tribalized and everything is shared for the greater good of the tribe or the cultural unit. All of these other corruptive ideas about this is mine and that's yours don't exist in those sorts of societies or in those sorts of cultures. So even in that sense, everything has to be broken apart, looked at, and reinterpreted through the idea of letting go of the defenses that keep things separate for the greater good. It's like somewhere we got off track, or somewhere I got off track with my soul journey, and Jesus had to come in, go through the whole resurrection to remind me what's actually going on and the alternative that I have, or the better way that's available. So it's like, oh shit, that's right. I'm on a journey of the soul. I'm just passing through here. This is not my home. I don't have to value things. I don't have to live my life according to the way that people tell me that I'm supposed to live. I can live a purely spiritual life in faith if I want to the point where faith becomes redundant. Right? Where it is so assimilated into my being and into my psyche that I'm one with all things. Why would I need faith? Right? At that point, I've literally entered into the kingdom of heaven, which is a state of mind. Right? The kingdom of heaven is a state of mind of perfect peace. When you are just grateful for everything, how happy will you be? Imagine a state of mind where no matter what happens to you, you're grateful. The things that you call good, the things that you call bad in the duality of the initial experience, well, let me use those things. I don't want anything here. I'm giving up the world and following Jesus. So whatever comes to me that I might think is good is an opportunity to let that go and return my mind back to the grace of God. Whatever I think is bad is an opportunity to let that go and return my mind back to the grace of God. And stay in that flow, stay in that energetic presence of the recognition and the remembering of the higher self within me, and live from that. Right? And that will bring the witnesses of living from that. And it's those witnesses that you want to see. Every day should be a miracle to you. Every day should be joyous. Every day should be happy. There is no reason you shouldn't be happy. All of those reasons not to be happy are self-fabricated. I'm not happy because I don't have enough money. I'm not happy because I don't have any friends. I'm not happy because this, that, and the other. But literally, that's what's making you happy, right? You're happy to complain. You're happy to be a victim. You're happy to be all of these things. And it's like, why? Because it serves an old purpose of separation. And then all of a sudden you see it and you're like, oh shit, I see what actually my agenda really is here. I'm not letting go and letting God. I'm telling myself I'm letting go and letting God, but I'm still secretly trying to maintain these little hidden agendas, you know? Like, you can't leave any stone unturned. Why do you care what the world thinks of you? You know, like Krishnamurti. The world cannot tell you who you are. The world can't tell you anything about yourself. It just gives you one opinion after another, and every day it changes, and every day it's unstable, and every day you don't know whether you're going to make it through the day or not. What kind of way is that to live your life? You know? It's kind of funny. You got to be, in your mind, you got to be like St. Francis. Fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm just throwing off all my clothes. I'm chucking away all my possessions, and I'm walking out of this crazy village with all these people that are just interested in making money and controlling things, and I'm going to go find something else without knowing what that something else is. Right? I'm hearing a voice. I'm hearing guidance. I don't know the source of it. I'm assuming it's God. I'm assuming it's the Holy Spirit because that's what other people tell me about, but I want to know for myself. So I'm going to go find that for myself. I'm going to go do that for myself. I don't know how, but it's definitely not this way. Off goes the clothes, out the village gate, never to return. Right? It's the most it's the most beautiful story ever, really. You know, and he goes and rebuilds the church, like literally rebuilds the church as well as figuratively, which is his own, you know, relationship with God. So, but the funny thing is, you know, and people often have this perception that when you start a spiritual journey, well, I have to give up everything and go and sit in India for 6 years or something and find, you know, do whatever. If you do that, you do that, but it's not about that. It's about being aware in your own mind that you're literally in India now, or wherever it is you think might be a holy place with holy teachers and what all that sort of stuff. You've literally got the framework and the support and everything that you need right here and right now, right? But you don't want it. It's like you're sitting in an a la carte restaurant and they can cook you the most incredible meals and all you want is fish and chips. You know? And the chefs are there like, man, I've spent 20 years studying to be able to cook you these cordon bleu chicken and you just want a bit of fish and chips. It's like, all right, well, we'll give you the fish and chips, but there's always more, right? There's always more. It's like, just keep letting go and you'll develop a taste for higher menus, for greater recipes and things. And you'll enjoy that a lot more. But initially, the letting go is fearful because you equate it with loss, the loss of the self-identity. But there's no way out of that. That has to occur. Like the caterpillar has to become the butterfly. How long you want to stay in that process in the little pupa in the healing chamber, that's up to you. But literally, Jesus is offering you everything right here and right now, the entirety of it. Everything. All you got to do is ask. Ask and you shall receive. Right? It's like, well, how do I get to that place where I really ask? How do I get to that place where I really mean it? Where I really want what's being offered? It's like, you've got to realize there's nothing in the world that you want. You got to take off the blinders. Stop trying to pretend that all that bad stuff's not happening because I only want to see the good stuff. Right? And look at the world in its entirety, good and bad, yin and yang. Let it push you. Let it crush you under its boot. You're eternal. Nothing's going to happen. But you've literally got to see the prison that you've invented for yourself. You've got to be able to look at it and see the bars. It's like, oh, shit. Right? When you see it in its entirety, you'll realize the door's actually open. There's no key. I love the bit in the Course where Jesus says when someone who's been in prison for a long time realizes that they're free to go, they don't just get up and run out of their cell because they're so institutionalized to the idea of limitation and restriction. It takes them a minute to comprehend what's going on and what's being offered and what's in front of them. Literally their liberty. And that's what this whole mind training is about. You're literally coming to terms with the fact that time and space is now done for you. Right? I'm coming to terms with it. Time and space is done. I'm moving on in the journey of my soul. If I'm in the parameters of even being able to hear this message, then I'm literally already in the departure room waiting for the swing low, sweet chariot to come and take me on to the next thing. It's kind of cool. You know? You're included. Your name is written in the book of life. You're already here. You've made it. Ta-da! But you haven't kind of realized it. It hasn't dawned on you. It's like if somebody wins the lotto, you win $100 million. At first, there's this moment of disbelief. What do you mean I won $100 million? What? $100 million? And you look around and you look for other people to verify it. And you're kind of like, is this a trick? Is this a joke? Right? And it takes that moment to suddenly go, holy shit, I won $100 million. And then it proceeds to steamroll. Once there's a moment of acceptance, it proceeds to steamroll, and you start to imagine all the things you could do with the money and everything else like that. Well, salvation's the same thing. Once you have a little shift in consciousness and you have one action of forgiveness and you see how it changes one of the relationships in your life, it sort of steamrolls and you're like, wow, what else can I apply this to? What else is there in my life that could be improved through forgiveness? Right? And you kind of want to find it. You know there's going to be a moment of fear when you have to confront whatever it is because you know that you're the one responsible for it. But at the same time, it's like, well, I was only mistaken. I'm not guilty for anything. I was just mistaken about what I thought my purpose was. And if I'm honest, I didn't really even have a purpose in life. I was just trying to fulfill transient goals that seemed to make sense based on stimuli around me. You know? But now I've got a goal. Now I've got a true goal. It's inner peace. It's the perfection and mastery of the state of inner peace through forgiveness, which allows peace to flow into and through all of the relationships and situations I find myself in life. All of them. Literally, you're being asked to represent inner peace to the world. You know? And to the world, inner peace is something, well, if I can just get to the rainforest on the weekend and sit there for meditation for an hour, I'll find some peace and then I can go back to my busy life, right? It's like, no, your busy life is always going to be the disruption of what it is that you think you can go back to based on the idea of peace being separate from that, right? Apply forgiveness to your busy life and the rainforest comes to you. It's really quite beautiful. You're in the rainforest automatically. You're in this blissful sort of state of mind, and things that would have once come to you like, and you want to run away from, all of a sudden they're doing this. You don't even notice. The trigger is no longer in your mind. The thing that you were defending against, or the reason that you were defending against, is gone. There's an acceptance of love as your higher purpose now. And all of a sudden that trigger has no purpose. It's gone. It's been healed. And the world still does whatever the world does, because it's always going to be a place where all things come to die, but you find yourself in the world but not of it. It's like, wow, this would have really once pissed me off. All this stuff would have upset me and I would have defended myself against it. I would have had all these reasons and justification for my defense, and it would have set up a whole nother parameter of restriction upon my own sense of liberty and freedom. As long as I don't go over past that place over the road where those noisy people, I'll be fine, and then other neighbors move in next door. These ones are noisy now. It's like, what the hell, and this guy over the back with his car, I'm going to have to move. This neighborhood's really starting to piss me off. It's gone to the dogs. That's what they say. It's gone to the dogs. And so you move, and then it follows you to the next place. This is a nice little neighborhood, and then somebody gets a dog and it starts barking all day and all night. You know what I mean? There's no peace in that situation where you're constantly running away or reinventing yourself in order to try and find nirvana out here in the world. It's got to be in your own mind. It's got to be with you, and it is with you. It's only your ability to recognize it, realize it, and work with it as an extension of the light, as an extension of that gift and that giving, that keeps you separated from it, that seems to keep you separated from it. Isn't that right, Eric? So we're going to give Eric an assignment, Tyna. Oh, by the way, I've sent you a box of books. So I'm packing up stuff here in this house, and I found 2 boxes of sparkly books that I didn't think I had. I knew I had a half-open box. So I've sent you 1 box. So if any of you guys want a sparkly book, you don't have one, or if you don't have a course book at all, Tyna will be able to. I've sent them by sea mail, so they're going to take like 30 days. And there's a bunch of the old traveler's guides in there, which we'll send to Eric. And when you get them, Eric, let me know, and I'm going to send you on a mission from God.
Sounds good.
All right. That's it. That's the way it goes. You'll be like Jake and Muss or whatever, the Blues Brothers. So we're on a mission from God. Yeah. I love that movie. But they're always on a mission from God, as long as the penguin, who's the Mother Superior? Their version of a mission from God is drinking and boozing and having a good time whilst playing blues music to raise money for the orphanage or whatever it was. And Mother Superior's idea of sending them on a version from God is to go out and be ethical about, which is the religious input of it. But it's like, literally, you're on a mission from God anyway. This is it. You get that, Eric? You're literally on a mission from God now. You're here to represent him who sent you. You don't remember being sent, but you're not here for no reason. In the fulfillment of that mission is also your own process, is also your own healing, your own assignment, your own atonement. It's not like I'm healed first, particularly, and then I go out and heal others or do whatever. It's like there is that element where first I got to pull the beam from my own eye before, I've got to learn to love myself before I can know how to love anyone else. But literally it's simultaneous. The moment you love yourself, you'll realize how you feel about everybody, regardless of the judgments and the preconditioned ideas you have about it. Right? In that moment, your atonement is complete. You may still find yourself talking to other people about things and offering course and helping with the celestial speed up, but it's already completed in you because Jesus's resurrection is already in you as something you can identify with simply by the very first moment of witnessing through your yes. Right? But the ego will try to cover that up. The ego will try to make that oblivious to you. And it's like, oh, was that a miracle? Did something happen? Like whatever. And it's like that's in the course when you start doing the workbook, like, and he says, you have to have these ongoing and repetitive bam, bam, bam moments of confrontation and release, confrontation with your own ideas of limitation and the release from them. So you can see that it's not just a one-off possibility or whatever, because you're going to try and dumb it down, right? You're going to try and convince yourself that something happened, but it maybe that it wasn't a miracle, or maybe that it was a miracle, but I don't know how that happened, so maybe it was just a fluke, right? Any excuse, the ego would rather have you throw yourself off a cliff than reach enlightenment or have an awakening experience, right? Literally. Because then you have to produce a new physical form and come back again to start all over again. And the ego gets to taunt you from the get-go, right? It literally dangles a carrot. Look, something shiny in the world. Distract you, which is why in your mind training, my sense of purpose has to be resolute, right? And you build that up. It's like, well, it is my purpose to be happy, and happy for a true reason, not happy based on external things. Right? It's like, I'm happy because I'm included in salvation. I'm happy because I'm one with all things, and because everyone is my brother. Everyone is my Christ-minded, mighty companion. The forms and the figures and the illusions that we present ourselves to each other through have no reality and don't matter at all. It's like literally all that's going on here is raising a vibration and being able to witness to that raising through the imagery so that we can stay on track, so that we can sort of keep going in this process of healing to the point where you realize no healing was ever really required. What could there be to heal in God's creation if God creates perfect? I'm only ever healing my ideas that I think something's wrong. I'm only ever healing my ideas that I think I'm lost or that I'm in a place where I don't know what's going on. And that's fine. There's no judgment. There's nothing about that. It's like, but let's look at it again. Let's choose again. Let's see if we can view our situation and our world differently based on new ideas that Jesus is giving us. It's like, holy shit, these new ideas are astounding. There is no world. The central lesson that the Course attempts to teach is that there is no world. It's like literally this year, three scientists, three quantum physicists were awarded the Nobel Prize for proving that the universe is not locally real and that we don't actually exist at all. I feel jilted. I've been saying this for 26, 27 years. There is no world. Where's my Nobel Prize? I want that check, you know. Not really, but you get. So it's like, damn, that's going to be bad news to the ego and good news to you who have other dimensional realities, other spheres of experience to be getting on with in the journey of your soul. Right? And that brings you to a point where, well, I don't know what's next. I don't know what's beyond the laying aside of the vessel. Right? Maybe you have had an experience of the afterlife or whatever. I have. I can tell you that there's more. I can tell you that it's way better than this. That this is like, I forget how Jesus talks about it in the Course, but the world is a sorry excuse for a home for the Son of God or something like that. And as you go up the ladder, as you begin to continue on in the journey of your soul and release yourself from this particular part of it, it just gets better and better and better. Right? The vibration gets higher, the love becomes more. I had a glimpse like recently, well, a few years ago now, which is recent really in the spectrum of things, of there's some music playing somewhere. Is that me?
Ah, that's me. My bad.
Oh, that's you. You're bad.
I think so. Yep, it's
But I had
me.
an experience of the blue people, right? Which the blue people came to me quite some years ago now.
No, it's not me.
It's not you. Where is that coming
It
from?
is me. It is me. It is me. It is me.
Oh,
In the
hello.
background. Who's there?
Right. Who's there? Just mute your microphone, Tina.
Oh, my bad.
And I was shown the next level for me. Now, the it came as a bit of a shock because I had, being a bit biblically minded, I had always kind of imagined that the next thing might have something to do with angels and whatever, as I perceived them or as I understood them, and some kind of more celestial thing rather than blue people. But in the experience, the takeaway from that was such a sense of love. Like there was the presentation of my next incarnation, which was a small. They said to me, "Your next body is ready," and it was well, not small like that, but like about the size of an 8-year-old human boy, blue, and the being presenting the image or the body that I would be inhabiting had a very feminine energy, feminine aura around it, and the sense of love and the sense of acceptance and being wanted that I got from that as my takeaway from the experience was so incredible. It stayed with me for several days, and it was just a relief. It was like, oh my God, I'm wanted. I'm actually wanted. I'm valued. I'm like, there's this whole thing. And I know it might sound a little bit mean to say it, especially since my earthly mother here has really passed, but I never got a sense of feeling wanted or loved in that way by my earthly mother, right? Partly in being because the experiences of finding yourself in the world is to deny that love. That's the experience you initially come here to have. I come to see what denial of God is like. I don't like it, and I begin to choose again. But I remember thinking from the takeaway of that with the blue people, I'm like, what? Like, this is the next level. And I've experienced two other levels other than that. But I know that for me, particularly incarnation or associatively speaking, it's another whole thing that has nothing to do with this world. Right? It's a step up Jacob's ladder, if you want to call it that. And it came as a bit of a surprise because I was expecting people with wings and light shining out and all this, like that sort of Sunday school. You're sort of told angels look like this, and this is, Hey, Edith.
Hi.
So, yeah, and that was like everything that occurs, right? And you guys will have this. And where's April? April's already had some things like this going on, right? So, but everything that occurs is always relative to and makes sense of where you're at in your own journey, where you're at in your own process. So you begin to have these experiences of non-temporal, more celestial spheres of experience. And whilst they might come as a bit of a surprise or a shock or whatever, they actually make sense of what you're looking at here in your own process of reintegrating your awareness back to the sense of love that is within you, that abiding love, like the presence of love. And the more you remove the obstacles to the awareness of love's presence within you, the more that continues. The deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the more experience you can be shown and given, which will make sense of and back up your and it's kind of funny because like you can't comprehend it, but it backs up the fact that your purpose and your waypoint, your orientation are no longer earthly. Right? No longer earthly. All of a sudden, you begin to get a sense and realize that I'm in a process of realigning myself to an energetic, ascending kind of thing that we call healing that's giving me experiences of other celestial realms, other beings, other dimensional experiences and things. And each time you have one of those shifts in consciousness, each time you have an experience of that and have the corresponding shift in consciousness, it all falls into place. It's like putting a little piece of a jigsaw puzzle together, right? But if they're occurring at random, you don't know what kind of puzzle you're putting together, which is why you have to have that purpose. My purpose is peace. My purpose is inner peace, perfect inner peace. That's all I want. You can offer me all the money, whatever. I'm not interested. It's about peace. Right? Proceeding along the lines of that, proceeding along the lines of staying true to that vibratory sort of sense of yourself as being a peaceful being, even through the avatar, right? You begin to come into contact with other things that are operating on that frequency, other experiences that are able to reach to you through that frequency, right? And things start to make sense. Things start to just drop in, and even though you may not have expected it. I was literally expecting people with wings, and like when the blue people happened and I understood what was going on, I felt so stupid. Not that there aren't people with wings. I mean, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. That wasn't my, So if you see actual angelic figures with wings, yeah, but it's bizarre. Eric, what's going on for you? Let's do Eric for a minute.
What's up?
Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're feeling.
Dread.
Right, good. Dread. The approach of dread, or you're in dread now?
Just in it.
Good. That's okay. Remember, it's only you that calls it dread. It's like Carrie. Carrie calls it whatever she calls it, and she sends me messages. I've got all this energy going on and don't know what to do. Right? Don't analyze it and don't label it as dread. Right? Try to see everything as just energy. Try to see everything as just an effect of the light. It's only that part of your mind, the ego mind, that wants to call it something. Right? If there is only God, then it can only ever be God, because that's what you are. Right? It may seem to be outside of a spectrum of experience that you really want, or that you feel that you want to participate in, but literally accepting it is the key to being able to move on through it. I was like, oh, cool, I'm feeling dread, right? In eternity, you can't feel dread. In eternity, you can't feel this way at all. It's only unconditional love. That's it. It's like, wow, what an experience I'm having. Right? Once you see it that way, it's like, wow, I'm feeling dread. Right? You kind of step back and observe the state rather than interact with it and give it a label and whatever. It's like, wow, look how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like, I'm feeling this heaviness or whatever. But literally, you can't experience that in eternity. Right? If you were to try and tell anyone, let's say in eternity, if eternity had people, let's say, in the Sunday school version of heaven, if you were to try to tell anybody what dread is, they'd look at you like they don't know what you're talking about, like you're speaking Japanese. You have to literally experience it, right? Seen rightly, it's part of your experience of coming to know yourself here. In all of the duality and all of the things that you tell yourself you can experience as emotional states, dread's in that camp. It's like, cool, I'm experiencing dread. Right? But God goes with me everywhere I go. So how long do I really want to stay in this experience for? Obviously, I'm experiencing this as part of my healing, because I'm telling myself that's what I'm about. And the process of undergoing that healing is accepting it or forgiving myself for not accepting it. Right? You can't control what comes to you. You can't control what you seem to experience, but you can control how you interact with it. That's it. Do I try to defend myself against how I'm feeling, or do I accept how I'm feeling and allow that to process? Because like all things come and go here in time and space, everything has a beginning and an ending. The state I'm feeling today isn't necessarily guaranteed to be the state I'm feeling tomorrow. Right? If you can begin to take it on board that everything is the activity of the Holy Spirit, everything across the board, and his purpose is healing, then you can begin to align with that. I've had so many moments of feeling dread and feeling anxiety and feeling everything. And the initial reaction, right, because the ego always speaks first, the initial reaction is to want to make some sort of decision about it. How do I feel about how I'm feeling? Right? Keeping yourself then separated from how you're feeling rather than realizing I am the state. I am what dread is. Right? I'm not separate from that. It's energy. I call it something, but really this is me. This is me feeling. This is me as this feeling. Right? It's kind of hard to, like, because the temptation is always to want to identify with it. Right? But you can only identify with it from a point of view of seeing yourself as somehow separated from it. Right? When I put my finger on my nose, oh, this is what I am right now. I am dread. I've called it dread. Let me look at it as that for a second. I'm just going to sit here and breathe through this energetic thing, which, seen rightly, is nothing more than the process of universal healing trying to happen in you. Right? The Holy Spirit is literally like, Eric, just be still. We're going to do this thing, and it's going to feel a bit uncomfortable for a minute, but you'll be fine. Right? And you step into a moment of faith with it, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to process this, what's going on for me, and I'm just going to let it happen. I'm going to let this dread happen wherever it takes me. However, it might go down, and I might feel more dread, or it might suddenly disperse with my acceptance. And, you never know what healing is going to look like, but there's always this moment of gratitude. It's like, wow, thank you. I'm in the process of healing. Thank you. There's something going on for me. Right? There's no logical reason you should experience dread if everything is love, right? So somewhere you're perceiving what everything is as love, as dread, and getting the results of seeing it erroneously or seeing it wrongly, right? When you learn to take on board everything here is teaching and learning, everything here is actually healing, and that's the Holy Spirit's purpose, it's like, oh, cool. This is the purpose of the Holy Spirit active in me. It feels like dread because I'm not used to all these higher level vibratory things that are going on. Right? It's like last night, I think it was last night, and it happened about 2 weeks ago as well. So about 2 weeks ago, and this is an extreme example, or it's extreme to me because it's the first time I've had physical interaction. I went to Annie's place, which is a couple of hours down the road, and Annie and I do a bit of stuff together with the course and the books and things like that. But I was at Annie's place, and her house was full of people. So I slept on the floor and just had a sheepskin on the floor there. There was nowhere else to sleep. And it was a very uncomfortable night's sleep she's just got wooden floorboards. And a sheepskin isn't that thick. And I kept tossing and turning and tossing and turning, trying to get comfortable, eventually fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning with a hole in the back of my head, like literally a hole. There was and I said to Annie, I could feel it. There was this kind of stinging thing. And I said to Annie, what's going on here, Annie? Can you have a look? There's something on my head. And she pulled my hair and she goes, there's a little bit of scalp missing. She said, you've got a hole you could put a pencil in it, like there's a tiny bit of scalp missing there. And I'm like, what the hell? There was no blood. There was nothing. And there's this scalp missing. And I'm like, what is, like, how does that happen? And I'm inclusive of it with the idea that the Holy Spirit, because like everything is the purpose of the Holy Spirit, right, in my mind. So I just accepted it. It was like, all right, cool. The scalp's missing. I'm still breathing. It's not like somebody shot a bullet through my head. Anyway, yesterday, might have been the day before yesterday, I'm just sitting quietly in my room, sitting on my bed with my eyes closed, breathing and just listening for any guidance. And I went into a kind of a settled place with that and just sort of fell into this moment of like where all the external world dissipates. And I was grounded and I could feel like this. It was like hands on my head, putting something on my head, going backwards and forwards. And it felt like there was a band or a something being put down over my head. And then I felt this stinging again. This is 2 weeks later. I felt this stinging again in the back of my head. And all of a sudden the little hole's there again. Right. So like today there's a kind of a dent, like a scab or whatever, in exactly the same place. And I realized, but the hands felt like hands. It felt like fingers and thumbs and whatever. And the only reference I have for that was a woman who was with Dr. Fritz, right? And from Wisconsin. And she said she went there for some cancer or some tumor to have out. And she felt, Dr. Fritz called it spiritual surgery. She felt hands on her, even though no one was touching her, and felt something moving around in her body, like energetically in her oral body or her higher frame. And I'm thinking, well, cool, that's pretty bizarre that there's a little tiny hole in my head, but I don't know what was going on, right? But without mind training, I would have been tempted to go and perhaps get medical advice. I've got this little hole and it's happened twice, and try and ask somebody what was going on, but with the realization that, hang on, there's only the process of the Holy Spirit. I've already been healed from cancer, right? Miraculously. I had a freaking cancer miracle. They wanted to put me on chemo and it's like, what's a tiny little hole in my head? And there was an immediate acceptance of it, right? And all concern and dread and worry and everything about that just gone, right? Immediately. And it becomes this kind of funny little story, right? So whenever you're in anything, whenever you're in any kind of frequency of energy that you want to label as something unusual, and you would only ever call it dread because it's not what you think is your norm, your normal state of peace and happiness, right? It's always realigning. It's always bringing you into a greater awareness of yourself in a new frame. If you learn to work with it, if you learn to collaborate with it, that process will be smooth sailing. If you resist it, it tends to be like someone trying to stick a pineapple up your butt, like it's rough going and it's like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And sometimes it can feel that way. You have, like anyone ever had a Kundalini thing happen, and you feel it in your base and it's like something stirring around in there. And it's like, oh, that feels bad. It's like, but anyway. Any questions with that, Eric?
No questions.
All right, good. I can promise you there's nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing to worry about. All right. Oh, there's Amber.
So Dave.
Yes, Sean.
Hey, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hand, but I totally had that happen.
The Kundalini thing?
I've had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, early on, it was just that really intense. It was energy that was just really tight. It was like something was reaching into me, into my abdomen and twisting and all this stuff. And I just had to breathe and learn to go with it because I wasn't getting away from it.
You can't do anything about it. It's just,
surrender to it. And I've not had any kind of physical manifestations on the outside, but I have that where it'll feel like somebody's just moving and bringing it's interesting.
Kind of trippy, isn't it?
It's cool to hear you say that though, because I'm sitting there going, what is that? And
Oh, don't worry. I go, what is that too? And it always jolts you back to accept, oh, hang on, it's just the Holy Spirit. That's all that's going on here. Yeah. I'm literally living in the resurrection. right?
Yeah.
Just because I might have ideas contrary to that doesn't mean it's not true. I'm living in the time of resurrection.
Yeah.
Somewhere in my mind, I'm aware of a story about a guy that didn't die and raised up to heaven and whatever. And that puts a chink in the armor of everything I believe about death. Or maybe there is no death. He says there is no death. And apparently he did this and put your fingers in there and Thomas, but like somewhere in my mind, that chink in the armor, let me relate to that. Let me look at that. Let me look at that chink in the armor that sort of underscores what I think about death. If there is no death, and I'm still seeing death around me and facilitating my belief structures rooted in the idea that all things here are going to die, which one of those two things is more important or more valuable to me? Jesus's perspective, where he says there is no death, or me with all my heaps and heaps of validation for everything dying and sick and suffering and blah, 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 blah. It's like you don't really have, there's no alternative to it. Once you realize that you're living in a time where, like Jesus poked a pinhole in the balloon of time and space, all of the air's going out now. I'm in the balloon. At some point, I'm going out too, as an idea of the energy that the balloon represents. I'm going out as well. And it's like I'm beginning to feel the flow of that air being sucked out, which is the inner call. I'm beginning to feel like something's occurring that I can't explain. Let me participate with it, so at least when I go through that pinhole in the balloon, I'm facing the right way, right? So there won't be the friction and the big pineapple of being all over the place with it, right?
Yeah.
Let me perceive all of the things that are occurring in me, through me, and for me with grace, right? By the grace of God, by the grace of God. And it's like in the Course, Jesus says, grace is the last gift bestowed upon you by God. Beyond all the forgiveness, beyond all the healing, you enter back into that frame of grace. And, oh man, just one little glimpse, one little moment of God's grace in your life, it's just like this whole other thing. And you're like, wow. It's like all of a sudden everything is smooth, everything is perfect, everything is just graceful. But there's this process of repenting where we're turning around and then looking out, maybe there's something still in the world I want. No, turn around again. What about that over there? No, turn around again. And we're constantly reevaluating, or I'm constantly reevaluating my yes for salvation based on the temptations that I've set up in the world in my old script that are still playing out. It's like I've got a storyline of being born and going to death, and I tried to exclude God from that as an idea of separation from God, and yet the light got in regardless. And here I am mid-storyline with my old script still playing out, now being given an opportunity to look at it differently. Now being given an opportunity to choose again when all of the things of my old story of death continue to show up. It's like, oh, good one. Trying to tempt me into believing that I can actually die, right? Or that I can actually suffer, or that I can actually anything. Well, only if I engage and only if I react with that old script I can, but only in the false sense, only in the illusory sense. I can't actually ever die because the I that I am is eternal. But that old script is constantly tempting me to be confused and reassociate with the story of I'm Dave and I'm a body. I'm not Dave and I'm a body. I'm the Christ and so are you. I'm this energetic, expressive kind of divine being of light, and so are you. And you know it, and I know it, and like this game's over, and whoop, we're done. And it's like we start to laugh about it. Oh, that was a funny idea, wasn't it? Tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. It's like, well, it doesn't seem so funny when you're still playing along with the old script. That old script of suffering and pain and death. Like, what's funny about that? Well, you're doing it to yourself. What's funny about that? That seems like an insult to your intelligence. But when you realize that you're eternal and that you can't die, it's like, hang on a minute, what? Why am I even doing this? Why am I playing this game? Why am I persisting in victimhood? Why am I persisting in all of this stuff if I can't actually die and I can't make any of this stuff true to myself? I must be mad. I must be literally bonkers. It's like, yes. Are you laughing yet? You're completely insane. You have no clue who you are, where you are, what you are, or what's going on. And yet you charge around every day making decisions. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Isn't that what crazy people do? So it's like, all right, I'm crazy. I'm completely crazy. Now, in the moment where I realize, like, I can sit here and go, Dave, you're completely crazy, and have that as a concept, right? I think it was Tyna the other day, and something dropped in for you and it was just suddenly real. Like, wow, even though I'd told you 100 times and you'd read it 100 times, all of a sudden, bam, there was this, the light went on and you heard what I said or heard what the course was saying, whatever. It's like, you can hear it 100 times. I can tell you, Sean, you're fucking batshit bonkers crazy. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, you know. And then all of a sudden, one day, you're going to be walking down the street and it's like, holy shit, I'm insane. And that's going to be the most liberating moment of your life, right? When you actually hear it. It's like lesson one, nothing I see means anything. 8 months before I heard that, reading it every day, talking to other people about it, doing the lesson, nothing I see means anything. All of a sudden, I had a relative experience where that just dropped in and bang, all of a sudden it wasn't this sort of thing in my head anymore. It was the truth. It was just like kapow. And it was like, wow, nothing I see means anything. Automatically, I was liberated simultaneously from everything that I thought I'd given meaning to that I thought meant something. It just applied to everything. It's a universal lesson. It wasn't just the situation as I perceived it in that moment that didn't mean anything. It was like nothing I see means anything. How beautiful is that? How liberating is that? I don't have to continue to give things damn meanings. I'm free, and so are you. Right? But finding those points of freedom, my teacher used to talk about it as ring pass knots. You know, you got the string with the big knot, and you got to move the little silver ring along, and you got to get past that knot, and you can't get past it. There's this thing in your mind where you're sort of always grasping. You can hear it, you can sort of relate to it. It sounds like what other people talk about and whatever, but it's not yours yet. And I remember prior to the illumination of my mind, prior to that revelation, I was hearing stuff, right? Everyone I'd ever talked to, every spiritual path I'd ever looked at always had things like, be here now, you know, and forgiveness is the key to happiness. And I had all these bits. I had all these sort of bits of information and spiritual technology sort of floating around in my peripheral. But I couldn't put it all together. It didn't just go kapow, you know, and like, wow, now I'm a different person. Now I've got this, right? It wasn't until the Course in Miracles came along and I was like reading it and I'm like, oh yeah, I know all this. And I did a video about this the other day, but part of my mind's like, oh yeah, I know this. So-and-so says this and this other teacher talks about that and whatever. But I realized that everything was in a kind of arranged, perfectly arranged, mind you, arranged structure where all of a sudden, all of those things that I'd been hearing all along, which was trying to tell me that we're all one, actually was in a process of being integrated, actually was in a process of me taking it on board in a methodical kind of way where I could come to my own understandings with it that led to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, so that it became the way that I am. Right? And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like there's hearing stuff and then there's the penny drops, right? It's like someone can tell you, don't put your hand on the hot plate because you're going to burn your fingers when you're a little kid, and you'll look at them and you'll look at the hot plate and you'll look at them and you'll look at the hot plate, and every time, and other people will tell you similar things, stay away from fire because it's going to burn. It's not until you actually put your hand on the hot plate and you go, whoa, now I know what you're talking about. It's like, damn, look what I did. Right? And that becomes your experience with the lesson, right? So like nothing I see means anything, or the idea that I'm completely crazy. There's not a bit of me that isn't crazy. It's a total thing in the world, right? The idea that I'm completely crazy, like Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole, right, is actually my liberty. It's like that admission of total insanity or total helplessness or total dependence on God is actually my freedom. Right? But looking at it and accepting it is literally putting the hand on the hot plate. It's like, I need to experience this. I need to have this penny drop and have it be my own thing. And it's like every time you see, like, who was it? Noodle had that thing where she could see that she was corrupting her relationships and whatever. But until you actually see it, it's just words. It's just concepts. It's just things that may or may not be true for you. Once you see it, once you put your hand on the hot plate, pow! It's like, oh, damn, it is true for me. That is hot. I am corrupting my own best interests. I am getting in the way. So from that point, you learn to let go and let God. And that's going to seem difficult at first. Until you have your first little shift in consciousness, you forgive something, you start to see how that becomes more beautiful in your life, that you've forgiven and those relationships are repaired and healed and everything goes back to being blessed. And you want it again and again and again. Right? You start to see your whole way out. You start to see how the application of the principles in your life is your whole way out. As your mind then is healed, your body begins to follow suit, right? Free your mind and the rest will follow. So it's like, where's Amber? Amber with her cancer and whatever. It's like for thousands of years, we've been sort of internalizing our pain, internalizing our stress and our thing, and trying to keep a lid on it. And like it's such a big spring, like there's so much pressure. Forgiveness lets that off. And it begins to affect everything to the point where your mind literally begins to change about the way you see yourself in the world as being not a body. Right? And that begins to automatically flow through the body and into the body as an idea of cellular reconstruction or healing, because the body is a construct of the mind. As the mind changes, so the body must also change. Right? Now, that can happen all of a sudden through the miracle. Like for me and Amber, I don't know if you're familiar with my story on that, but just in context, it went on for ages. The cancer went on for ages, right? Years, even though I was reading Course in Miracles and I kept having these doubts. I'm doing these lessons, I'm reading this book, I'm hanging out with everybody. Why am I not getting better? And it was like, well, the structure of me getting better was dependent upon getting to a certain point. And that certain point in my mind was where I could hear that I was doing it to myself. Even though I knew that conceptually, even though I knew it because the book told me that I'm doing it to myself, I still hadn't reached that point where I had decided or made that decision in the script to give myself cancer, right, in the physical form. All of a sudden, one night I'm watching a video about heart disease and the old man's like, you there, all you have to do is decide you have no use for it. And I stood up and I have no use for this. And boom, the heat, Sean, you're talking about that Kundalini and the whole thing. The heat was like, an iron that you use for ironing your clothes. It was like it went from my fingertips, up my arms, into my body, up the sides of my face, instantly healed. Never had it since. Right? That's kind of like a textbook miracle, I guess. But really, it's a process. Really, it's like this whole thing contributes to that finally being able to occur. And it's not going to look that specific way for everyone. For everyone, it's going to look somewhat differently. The triggers and the catalysts for your own healing are going to be involved and wrapped up in the relationships that you find yourself in, right? Give up the world and follow me. Look at all your relationships and all the situations you find yourself in based on that. Do I have an investment in this situation? Do I have an emotional attachment to this situation, or am I liberated? Am I free? Right? If the world is not your home and it's your purpose to follow Jesus, who's already gone from the world, it's like, well, I can't follow him and still stay here at the same time. I can't have a foot in both camps. I've got to make a decision. I can't serve two masters. Right? I've got to make a decision. And the opportunities for making that decision and remembering that you've made that decision are going to show up every day. In this relationship, in that relationship, every time your peace of mind is disturbed, you're choosing against your own best interests. Every time your peace of mind is disturbed by anything, you're being given another opportunity to choose again. Let me choose love instead of what it is that I've chosen that's brought this to me. I've been wrong about what I wanted. I'm going to choose again. Right? And literally, you're just allowing your mind to reconfigure itself to a whole new purpose, to a whole new thing. That may necessitate that you undergo the release of defenses and all that energetic stuff coming up, Carrie. Where is she? All that energy coming up, and you're feeling all that energy, right? But recognize that you're in a process. You can't do anything about it. You can't change it. You can't stop it. It's going to happen regardless because you're living in the resurrection. This is your time. This is your thing. The fact that you can see that you forgave somebody like your Al, the neighbor, you forgave Al not for anything he did, but you forgave him for playing that part, or you forgave yourself for asking him to play that part where you could project your shit onto him, your insecurities, your denial. All of a sudden, you've seen it as you, not him. Remove that trigger in your mind, and everything that was keeping all that in place about him is now coming up. Right? Let it come up. Just let it come up. You don't need it. You don't have to work out what to do with it. Just breathe, drink some water, be still, let it happen. If it feels like a pineapple, boop, then so be it. But sometimes it's pretty traumatic. Especially when you don't know what it is. There's the temptation, oh, what is this? I better go to the doctor. I'm feeling a certain way. Better go and see the psychiatrist. And I'm not saying don't, but I'm just saying, like, if you can realize everything's the activity of spirit, there is only spirit, you'll feel a lot better about going along with it and giving yourself the benefit of the doubt with regards to being able to endure, or not really endure, but go through the processing of everything that seems to be going on. Right? April. What's happening with you? Tina, I want to play that Mahabharata thing in a minute. If you can cue that up. I just want to
I
talk
will.
to
And there's someone here that's for the first time too. Say hi, Joel, with Amber. Joel's been trying to get in for a minute.
Hello. Hi.
There
Hey,
you go.
Joel.
Hey, Dave.
Oh, I saw Joel there. I'm getting around the board. What's going on?
Not much. It's quite late here in the UK. It's almost 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. Just I was sleepy, but I'm feeling okay now.
Good.
Yeah.
What brings you here?
Well, I've been reading a course and sort of interested in like understanding it and trying to like work out this situation I'm in and how things work and and that stuff, healing mostly. Yeah.
What book have you read before the course?
Been reading some kind of like, I guess, Taoist teachings. Like, I started out with the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
And then from there, I kind of found some books about like truth, I guess, direct truth, and miscellaneous things about the world and our thinking patterns. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
So
just random stuff.
you've been on the inquiring line for a little while then.
Yeah, yeah, self-inquiry.
Right.
Yeah,
You know you can't stop that.
yeah. There seems to be fresh stuff all the time. Yeah,
It's like the universe will continue to give you opportunities to study it until you get to a certain point where you realize that you're actually applicable to it. Like it's what it is that's going on for you. You know, which is
yeah,
what brings you here.
yeah. I don't
With
feel
this,
like I understand it enough, so that's why I'm
right,
sort of chasing my tail, maybe. But yeah,
right. You
seeking.
ready? There's nothing to understand.
Mhm.
Just be
Yeah,
here now.
maybe.
Be present. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Be present. You ready? Let's do it again. Hey, Joel.
Hey,
That's
hey,
it. That's
yeah,
it. There you go. Right. Stay there.
hey.
This is all it is. It's about being present, being aware, being awake, being like connecting and everything. As soon as you step back and think that there's something you need to understand and examine and grasp, you're back out of it again. Right? This is the love. It seems to be between us, but it's the love that we are. Right? It seems to be love between Joel and love between Dave, but it's not really. It's like it's the love that is Joel and Dave. Right? Hey, Joel.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, look how happy you are now.
yeah. Okay.
Now stay there. Now stay there. Stay in that place.
All right, I'll try.
No. Ready? Hey, Joel.
Hi.
Hey, good. Now stay there. You're always saying hello to love. You're always welcoming love. You're always like looking at the acceptance of love's offering to you, which is to join in this moment. Right? Let me join with love. Look at Tina.
Mhm.
She's busting. She's like a bull at the gate. She wants someone to say hi to her. Hey, Tina. There's a realization that we are eternal beings, that we are divine. Right? It's not the Course in Miracles is like really redundant in that realization. But the reason that you said, I'll try and stay there, that's the reason that you've got mind training, right? You've got 365 lessons. So you can remind yourself not to say, I'll try. In the absence of I'll try, you'll just be there. And you are there because it's where you are and what you are right here and now. This is what love looks like in this moment.
Mhm.
I'll try means I think there's a possibility love might look like something else in the next moment, which it won't. It's always going to look like what it is. Ready? Hey, Joel.
Oh, yeah.
There. Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah, that's great.
Right, exactly. Now stay there. Stay where it feels great. Just let that become the status quo. Right? Feels great. In that place, Jesus is the master of it feels great. Right? That's how you walk with him. Hey, Jesus. Hey, Dave. Right? Through prayer and meditation, that's the state. But in the world, in this physical environment, it's like, well, I just want to enter into a new moment of myself. I can't do that by trying to understand it because that takes time. I just have to do it. I just have to say yes. I just have to say hi. Hello, love. Because love is always meeting itself. Self is always meeting itself. All the mind training in the world is simply only ever going to bring you back to putting your finger on your nose and go, I'm one with all things. There's nothing separate from me. Whoever I meet, whatever's going on, it's only love. Well, not that it's only love. That sounds like a reduction, but it's love. Right? As soon as you try to decide what you think love is or what it should look like, it takes you out of it. Right? It doesn't have to look like butterflies. It can just look like being at peace. Right? From a state, you draw this line in the sand. And it's like Jesus says, well, inner peace is going to be your bottom line. When you're at peace with all things, you'll be happy. You'll just be, thank God, you'll be grateful, right? All this up and down of the dualistic thought system it's sort of like a pendulum on a grandfather clock, and it swings when you're in the world and you like your life is hell. You're going backwards and forwards. One day's good, one day's shit, and then another. And then when you start to heal, you start to go up that pendulum, and it swings less. It's still swinging, but it swings less. And you're like, oh, my peaks and troughs are not as wild, right? And you realize that something's happened until you get to the pivot point right at the top, and it's just doing this little tiny movement. And it's like, well, that little tiny movement is just me trying to stay completely focused on being here and now, right? Which automatically transfers inward through meditation to the idea of the pivot point. It's actually on a little spindle. It's actually on an axle, which if you look at it, it doesn't appear to move at all. Right? It's the weight at the bottom that makes it swing so wildly. It's like you start shedding that weight and it won't swing so far. You start shedding all that weight you've been carrying around, things will get lighter and easier, the vibration will raise, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself in this incredible, peaceful sort of, Buddha calls it the middle path. It's not good, it's not bad. It's not right, it's not wrong. All of those pairs of opposites that we've convinced ourselves, this is ethical, this is not ethical. This is moral, this is not moral. Who says? You're in a world where you don't know the meaning of life. What, are you going to try and make up rules for morality and ethics? Like one of the things that really took me by surprise in the Course when Jesus said, there's no such thing as reciprocal relationships. Right? There's no such thing as reciprocal relationships. We have relationships with people based on the expectation that they're going to treat us how we treat them. And that is the golden rule, do unto others. But it doesn't mean it's guaranteed, because my own vibration is going to set up for who it is that I meet and where it is I meet them and whatever goes on according to my need for healing. Right? Just because I pick up a spiritual book and it tells me everything is love doesn't mean that's where I'm at. I still might think there's something other than love. So when I meet someone in the street and they go, hey, Joel, it's like all of a sudden I'm going to be suspicious of their motivation. Right? Because the ego always speaks first. What do you want? Look at people in New York or where is it? Where everyone looks down. Nobody looks at each other and they don't say hi. I just moved here on the Gold Coast, which is 2 million people live here, from a country town of 100,000 people, where you can walk through the shopping centre in there and people will call out to you from the other side of the mall, hey, Dave, like that. They don't give a shit that there's 100 people in between that might think you're crazy. Everybody loves each other. Everybody's just kind of like, woo, like it's really weird. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's kind of really weird as well. You'd be walking down the street and everyone goes, hey, mate, how you going? And it's genuine. There's this kind of like openness. And you get to a city and everybody's like, because they're involved in that heavy energy of what cities represent of making money. It's a primary relationship, right? It's a hot pot. Let's put as many people as we can into a confined situation and give them some transient goals to achieve and watch them kill each other to do it, in an idea of limitation. And that's basically what a city is. And you'll have these little pockets of people within the city that are kind of like working it out and sort of representing something else. But generally, no, don't want to say good day today. I've got to go to work. I hate my job. I've got bills to pay, blah, blah, blah. And every reason not to look at somebody and make a total change or offer a smile or a hug or a blessing. I've got too much on my mind for love. Don't be ridiculous. Love's for crazy people or, love's for people that are in love, in special relationships and blah, 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 blah. And you'll give yourself every opportunity to not be in the, hey, Joel, how you going? You'll tell yourself any reason, and you'll find that you'll justify those reasons. You'll have people that betray your trust. You'll have all these sorts of things that goes on according to your own learning level, because they're the lessons that you need to learn. There is no one to betray your trust, only you. Why would you have an expectation of being deserving of your trust or their trust? This is a world where you don't know the meaning of life. As soon as you let go of all your expectations and all your projections and all your imaginary rules and agendas for how you think people should be, there's no such thing as a reciprocal relationship. There's only a perfect relationship. I'm being presented with what I need to learn all the time, every day. I may not like it because I have these other ideas, but it doesn't mean that it's not perfect. It just means that I don't want to accept it. It's like, oh shit, this person treated me bad for 10 years. This person did this to me. This person did that to me. No, they didn't. You just failed to recognize the lesson that they were there representing. They never did anything. And the more you fail to recognize it, the more you resist the learning of the lesson, the tougher it's going to come around next time, even to the point of the destruction of your physical body. You get run over in the street by a car because you weren't paying attention. And yet if you could follow that back all the way through your life, you'll realize that the lesson there to pay attention was being presented again and again and again in small, soft sort of ways, increasing in intensity as you go, because every time it comes around and you don't deal with it, you're convincing yourself you can't deal with it. I don't know how to deal with this. And you push it down, and it's like compressing a spring. It gets tighter and tighter and tighter until finally it just goes boing, and your body can't stand the shock and you get run over in the street by a car, which is the symbolic ending of your physical avatar. You have all this stuff goes on. So it's like it's important to pay attention to the little disturbances to your peace of mind as much as it is to the big ones. It's like, oh shit, something upset me today. I need to look at that. Why would I be upset if God goes with me everywhere I go and I'm learning to let go and let God? Obviously, I still have some kind of an agenda where I want to exclude God. I want to exclude love from my life, right? Whether I'm suspicious of somebody's motivation for saying hi to me, or whether I've got other things going on, like where I'm feeling for I've got to make the most of this situation. Otherwise, I'm going to lose out. All of these things, just let go. Just let go. Just let go. Let go. Every time there's a disturbance to your peace of mind, the answer to it is always going to be to let go or to forgive. Same thing, right? Let go. I'm just going to forgive myself for this and let it go. It's that simple. And that constant action of realizing that you're in a no-win situation, it's like Elon Musk and all those guys have got so much money and everything they're doing is for the betterment of the humanity and whatever, robots and things. It's like, for what purpose? You're still going to die at the end of it, right? Who dies with the most toys wins? Well, if that's how you want to look at it, then so be it. But I guarantee you that's not it. At least not for me. So you got to realize that all your motivations externally are always going to be false, and that there's only two things going on here. I'm either walking away from the light or I'm walking into it. In every given moment, in every relationship, I'm either choosing against the light or I'm choosing to embrace the light. That's it. My ego speaks first. If I learn to not listen to that voice and listen only for the Holy Spirit, I'll begin upon a new journey. I'll begin upon a new orientation where I learn that love is presented to me in every moment as it is, not as I want it to be, not as I think it should be. And that's going to be a process. And you've got to let yourself feel it. You've got to let yourself feel the process. Isn't that right, Cam? Don't be afraid of your emotions. Right? Your emotions actually help you, seen rightly. Use your emotions. They're just energy. If you feel a certain way about something, sit in that. Let it take you to its ultimate point of how you feel about it. And then when you get to that ultimate point where you can't feel any other way about it other than how you're feeling, fall into prayer. Use that energy for prayer. If you're feeling a certain way and you're just on the surface with it and you know there's more, but you don't want to really sit with it and look at it because it's uncomfortable, you're not making the most out of the potential that that particular opportunity is giving you. Right? So let me, somebody upset me today. They said something, right? It's not about what they said. It's the fact that I was upset. They could call me an arsehole or they could call me a beautiful person, whatever. It shouldn't disturb my peace of mind aggrandize, oh, isn't that wonderful? I'm a beautiful person. Oh, that's terrible. You called me an arsehole, right? Why would it disturb me at all? Why would it change my sense of self and bring me out of my state of perfect peace at all? I'm not here for glory. I'm not here to be pat on the back, and I'm not here to continue to debase myself, you know, none of those things. My only self-perception is that I am as God created me. And from that sense of self-perception, or from that sense of self as accepted as a concept, I apply the principles to make it my reality, right? To reveal what I've hidden. It's not like it's something I don't have. I'm already awake, right? But I've got all this other stuff in the way. So it's like when you said, I'll try to stay there. That's in the way, right? Now, think about your life. How many times in your life, in every situation you have, do you say, oh, I'll try? Doesn't matter what it's in relation to. I'll try is an energy that says, I can't do that. I'm not doing that now. Right? It's a symbol. I'll try is a symbol that says, God doesn't go with me everywhere I go. Therefore, I don't know if I can be guaranteed to do that. Right? It's like all of a sudden, well, either God goes with me everywhere I go, in which case there's no need to try. I'm just being, or not. And that's where the disparity is, and that's where healing is applied. That's where forgiveness is applied, right? And the more you do it, the more you'll like it. Maybe not initially, but emotions are funny, you know. Emotions are funny. We like our good emotions, and then our negative ones and the dark ones, we don't like those, you know, like they represent this horrible, you know, like I want to destroy the universe and kill everybody, and then I'll feel complete, right? That's in everyone. That's the ego's purpose, is complete annihilation. If you find yourself in the world, you're already aligned with that purpose, whether you want to look at it and admit it or not. I'm a self-destructive, self-corrupting, God-denying thing. You can't be that a little bit. It's either all or nothing. It's like, oh shit, I came here to deny God. As in, I came here to obliviate God, try and get rid of God and have my own world, my own experience. That sucks as an experience so far. I'm going to admit to myself I've been wrong about that, about what I wanted, and I'm going to make some new choices, some new decisions in my life. But literally, your emotional states will take you into those places where you realize how dark and deep it goes. You know? And it's like, if you don't react to it, if you don't label it, you can easily let yourself go right down into those depths. Right? It's like a, you know, when you're a little kid and you're in a dark hallway or whatever, and you know that there's something at the other end, you just got to get there. But the fear of going through that darkness, it's like, it's an illogical fear. It's an unreasonable fear. But yet you have it anyway, and it may or may not stop you from, you know, it's like a tunnel and there's the light at the end of the tunnel, but the tunnel seems to be so long you can't see the light. And within you, if only I could just see the light and be guaranteed that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, well, that's not how faith operates. You know, I've got to be willing to step into my emotions. I've got to be willing to step into, honestly, how I feel about myself in this moment, how I feel about this relationship in this moment, in this situation in this moment. And if your peace of mind is upset, if you're disturbed by something, then that's the call. You know, oh shit, I better look at this. I'm upset by this idea of my my body, or I'm upset by this idea of my relationship, or my whatever it is. It's not the particulars, it's not the catalyst, it's just the thing that's showing you that you're still upset, that you still have this other way of looking at things, as if there's some sort of justification for it. But literally, if God is everything, what are you going to be upset about? Either truth is true or it's not, and you have to make a decision. If truth is true, I'm all good. I'll let go of all my stuff then. But if it's not true, then maybe I'm justified in hanging on and trying to control, and, you know, But that doesn't bring me any good, so you're back to square one again. I don't feel good about all of that. What am I going to do? I'm just going to keep letting go, letting go, letting go. Isn't that right, Colin? It's that letting go. You ready? In this moment, in this moment, in this moment, let go and let God, let go and let God. There's something within you that's beyond your ability to control. It's going to happen anyway. It's your awakening. You're in the process. Edith, all good with you?
Yes. Oh, good. It's very interesting here. Having these experiences that feels like I'm part of the space where things take place. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like a detachment from I guess, the story that I
Good.
create.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's really cool. It's
That's
fun.
good.
Yeah.
Yep. You're stepping back, become more the observer rather than the person interacting with it.
Yes. And it feels like I have a choice. I don't have to be involved, the drama and stuff, and it's really interesting. And yeah, it seems like all kinds of stuff happened, but they're not part of me. I feel like, or maybe they are. I don't know, but it doesn't
Well,
matter.
they are.
But yeah, but it just doesn't feel the attachment anymore as strong as it was. So that's what's going on.
That's good.
Yeah.
Remember, everything is a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not separate from anything ever.
Mm.
But how you choose to see yourself in relationship to that, that's where you're at, which is good.
Thanks.
Very, very good. Anything else? Tina, play that. I want to talk to April a sec, but play that music first. All right, everyone, close your eyes. Just listen. We're not doing a light session thing. I just want you guys to listen. This is a really, really beautiful piece of music, as the world defines beautiful. Just listen and try to let it affect you. Right? I want you to see, like, if you're allowing yourself to be open to it and allowing your mind to just venture out, you'll start to get a feel of it. Right, close your eyes. Turn it up a little bit, Tina. Try to connect with it. The woman singing, the tones. Let it in. Colin, let it in. Feel.
Amritamaya Purusha Sarvanubhuh Yashchayamasmin Atmani Tejomaya Amritamaya Purusha Sarvanubhuh Tameva
Singing to your heart,
Viditvati Mrityumeti
singing to your heart. She's calling you.
Nanyah
You are her
Pantha
beloved.
Vidyate
Feel.
Nanyah Pantha Vidyate Nanyah Pantha Vidyate
Feel. Let her affect you. Let her reach in. Let this inside. Not separate from you. Deeper, Annie. Feel it. Don't drift off. Stay with the feeling. Amber, stay with the feeling. Amber, feel.
Tameva viditvati mrityumeti Nanyah Pantha Vidyate Nanyah Pantha Vidyate Nanyah Pantha
No use for this.
Vidyate
Have no use for this. I have no use for this. Feel. Breathe. Quite often it's like, well, not quite often, but always, if there's a sense of I'm not feeling anything or I don't feel anything, that's what you're feeling. That is a feeling. I feel nothing is a feeling. I feel empty. The amount of people I've had say to me, I feel so empty inside. I feel like a husk. I feel like there's no love in me, like I've got nothing to give. That's something you can feel. That's not emptiness. Associate with that. It's like, oh shit, I feel nothing. How does that feel? How does that make me feel? Instead of looking for something else or some other kind of state where you think you should be feeling something other than that emptiness. It only takes a little prick in the bubble, like boop, all the air starts to go out. You got to start somewhere, even if it feels like you're not feeling anything. Especially for guys, like in this generation and generations before, we're taught to hold our feelings in. Real men don't cry. I mean, things are starting to change generationally from that mentality, but it's slow. It's a very slow change. It's a very slow process. being open to change is what helps to facilitate it in you. I'm willing to feel. I'm willing to let myself feel. I'm willing to let myself be vulnerable to my emotional state. Because you can't lie about your emotions. Even the idea that you try to hold them back means they're there. You can lie about your thoughts. You can tell yourself you don't feel bad about something when you do, but your emotions will always betray you. It's like, no, I feel shit. I feel bad. I feel terrible. You can't do anything other than either push it down and pretend it's not there, or to allow it to come up and be healed. That's it. Dealing with emotions so far has been painful. I don't want to deal with this right now. I'll just get drunk instead, or I'll get some drugs, or I'll do something other than this. Literally to be still and allow yourself to feel it, to feel that energetic package. It's like, wow, I'm feeling terrible. Holy crap. What an experience I'm having. In eternity, I can't feel terrible. This is part of my earthly journey. This is something I need to include in. This is something I need to accept. Feeling terrible is literally part of the journey here. When I look at that from the point of observing it rather than reacting to it, it becomes, aha, I see what I've been doing all along. I'm not going to do that anymore. Amber, can you see me on your screen? Hold up a finger. Reach out to your screen and touch where I am on your screen. Close your eyes. Breathe. You ready? I want you to let yourself receive. You ready? Woohoo! Breathe. Carrie, you good? You want to complain about some stuff? You want to tell me a story? Cam, you good?
Not really.
Exciting.
There's someone that I blame for a lot of there's someone that I blame for a lot of the difficulties that I've experienced in my life, but now I'm just feeling like I should have suffered with them more. Like I should have
Birds of a
been
feather.
like I should have been more immersed in all the tribulation and all the pain, I guess, instead of acting like, you did this to yourself and now you're just dragging me along. But now but it's coming. I'm learning how selfish I am, and that was just coming from a place of selfishness. And I don't know. It's just a mess.
Right. What a story, huh? What a story. That's great. You know what's the greatest part about all of that? You can see it. You can actually see it. And you're feeling a certain way about it. You're letting yourself be immersed in it. Whether letting is the right word or not, maybe it's just happening. There's a book I want you to read, Cam. You should be able to find it online pretty easily. It's by a guy called Neil Donald Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very little book. It's a children's book. It's called Little Soul and the Sun.
Can you repeat that?
Little Soul and the Sun. And I think it's S-U-N, not S-O-N. Little
Okay.
Soul and the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh.
Okay.
And all of that you're feeling now and going through now, it'll put it into complete perspective for you in a very childlike way. Okay? Try not to be insulted that I'm presenting this to you in a childlike way. Try to realize that it's in a way that's so simple that you're going to see your part in it immediately. All right? And anyone else who feels like they might, like I've read the book. It's like it was the most beautiful book. I used to read it to my daughter when she was like 4 or 5 years old and would start asking, kids ask those questions. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? You get like a year of why? Ah, good. Woo-hoo! Thank you, Father. Amber, what do you feel your guidance is right now? Close your eyes for a second. Is there a sense of guidance with something? A doing, perhaps?
The word I got is record. And I am doing, because I am recording one video a day on YouTube with my husband Carlos as a deed of faith until my miracle is complete, because I got the revelation from God, from the Bible, and the Course in Miracles is actually telling me what's happening in my life.
Good. Close your eyes for a second. I want you to feel into that a little bit deeper. Try to feel a sense of guidance that is deeper than that, a sense of direction that is deeper than that, with a point to it that has a more immediate activity in your life. Like a sense of direction, a sense of doing. It's like additional to that or more than that. And feel into it. Like a prompt. And you might want to sit with it for a bit. Is Carlos there?
He's downstairs. I can go get him.
No, that's okay. Do you guys go swimming much or anything like that?
Well, we did. We used to, yes.
Because I'm getting a sense that you guys need to be going swimming again together.
It's winter now in Canada.
Well, that'll make it more interesting, won't it? I went swimming. I went swimming once in the Arctic or the subarctic ocean, the Antarctic Ocean off the coast of South Australia.
Yes. We
And
used
I
to
know Go on.
We used to do cold dips together all the time.
Right. Why did you stop doing that? It may have nothing to do with it, but all I'm getting is swimming.
Because I got sick again.
Right. You called it sick. You know, in the beginning of this meeting, in the beginning of this Zoom, I presented an idea of the purpose of the Holy Spirit being healing, and therefore that being the only purpose actually that there is. Which means, it doesn't mean that I perceive that necessarily. I'm quite capable of calling something sick and getting the results of my own thinking. I'm quite capable of understanding things not as they are, right? And it seems to be, it's like when I was going through my cancer, when I was going through my healing, and this is only because you've shown up today, right? When I was going through my whole thing, I called it sick, right? I gave it a name and a meaning, and I associated with it in a way that, even though I didn't realize it, it was detrimental to me. And I realized it didn't affect me anything to change my mind about that. It didn't change anything, right? So I made a decision to see that actually everything is the process of the Holy Spirit in me, whether I'm aware of it or whether I want to agree with that or not. And it took quite a while. It took a long while for that to actually become the way that I thought, and not just something that I had to keep reminding myself about. Right? There was times when I was in my sickness, in my cancer, right, where I wanted to end my life, where going through the process in faith was something that I couldn't see the end of. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I was beginning to doubt more and more that my faith was being effective, even though I wasn't taking any chemotherapy or drugs or anything to deal with it. I did try some nettle oil to rub on my skin because it was skin cancer. I did try some nettle oil that somebody recommended. And for a moment, it did seem to alleviate the symptoms. But even that sort of fell away as it got worse and worse. And it got to the point where all of my thinking about it was beginning to line up with faith to the Holy Spirit's purpose. Even though I still couldn't see the end. I still couldn't see the end. I didn't have any solution. And I felt worse and worse and worse about it. And part of me wanted to go to chemotherapy. Part of my mind was thinking maybe I should just go to hospital. Maybe I should put faith in all of that. Right? But I also had this thing. I didn't like the world anyway. I wanted to see this out, and I'd already had a revelation, right? I'd already had some kind of thing go on for me, spiritual, that showed me God is true. And it's like I realized that I was in the purification of everything in my mind that wasn't that. And I wanted to see that out to the end, no matter what happened, even if the end of me, my body, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that point that I got to. But there was a lot of things that contributed to getting to that point. There was a lot of things that people asked of me and referred me to and did things that I realized I had to open up to, because I'm only ever opening up to love. And so when I'm sitting with the idea of amber and cancer and what that was for me, it's like all I see is swimming. Like there's water in my mind, right? And swimming in water. I don't know where it goes from there. Right? But I know that including everything in, I know that letting everything in is part of staying open to my yes. You know, so I want to give that to you. I want to put that there for you. And it's like, I see you swimming in water. And if it's cold, so be it. But I see you in the water. You know, I went swimming in the subarctic ocean in the Tasman Strait, and it was in the minus degrees. And there was people on the beach. It was a sunny day, but there was no one swimming. It didn't occur to me at the time how cold the water was going to be. I just took off all my clothes and started walking down towards the water because I felt inside that I had to. Something inside of me was saying, go in the water, go in the water. Like it was a longing or something, you know. And I went in and it was freezing. It was so cold, but I knew I had to go in. I knew I had to go in. And I knew I had to stay in the water until that idea of how cold it was and everything was gone. And I was in there for about 30, 40 seconds until finally it was fine and I knew I could come out. And I don't know why that was or whatever, but there was this thing in me that my rationale against it tried to, you know, don't be silly. There's no one else swimming. It's probably cold. I didn't realize how cold, you know. That's only me. But it's like there's not no reason that I'm feeling that and seeing that for you.
No, that was our favorite thing to do. Honestly, we would do that every weekend. We went in the ocean in Canada, in British Columbia, all year round. We went in the ocean. We went in the rivers from the snowbanks. It was always something we loved to do. So
Right there, loved.
Yes.
And you stopped doing it.
Yes.
You told yourself you were sick and you stopped doing what you loved. You got off the path of doing what you loved. You stopped following your heart. There's an opportunity there, and I don't know if that means go back into the water now, but it does mean that you see what you're doing in your own mind. It's like, why? You know, you give yourself the excuse, I got sick. You know, it's like you're either living on your, you know, what's that saying? I'd rather die on my feet than to live on my knees. I'd rather die on my feet than to live on my knees. I know that's an old, non-spiritual kind of idea of freedom and liberty and being true to yourself, but look at that in that relationship. Look at that in that situation. Just let that in. Just let that in for a second. It may or may not necessitate or eventuate to you going swimming. It's about what's going on in here.
Thank you.
Everything comes as an effect of my own thinking, right? Everything comes as an effect of my own thinking. I'm affected only by my thoughts. That includes my physical body. That includes my journey. That includes everything. If you could follow your decision-making back, you can't, because it's, you know, in retrospect, you would see where you made the decision to be sick, or what you call sick. You would see it. Everyone has the same thing. Somewhere I chose this. When I had my cancer, the hardest thing for me was to accept that I chose it somewhere. I could accept it logically based on what the course was telling me, and I could accept it philosophically and spiritually. But when it came down to actually, boom, letting it hit me, that's, you know, that stayed with me right up until the moment that it was gone, that it was done. I knew that I was doing it to myself.
Yeah.
I knew that I'd chosen for it somewhere and that I couldn't figure it out, you know. So
Well, I know it's the lack of love for myself. That's all it
Right.
is.
Of course it is.
It can't be anything else.
Can't be anything else. Right? Ask to be shown. Where is it that I lack love for myself? And you might see it in somebody else. An old grievance, an old judgment that you've forgotten about. Something, it'll come up. It's just energy. Everything's just energy. No. There has to be a willingness to learn. There has to be a willingness to heal and be healed. And you've got to find that willingness through prayer. It's like, here I am, Lord, I am willing to heal and be healed. And I'm willing to accept that I might be lying to myself about that. I remember little Susanna came up to me one day in the healing center. I was walking around with a big long face. And she said, "What's up with you?" And I said, "I've been praying for a miracle and nothing's happening." And she said, "You probably need to pray for a miracle to even want a miracle." Right? Because the first block to the awareness of love's presence is the desire to get rid of peace. You don't want love. You don't want self-acceptance. We always come to the altar in our falsity. It's like, oh shit, I'm lying. I'm the lie and God's the truth. And that's where I stay in my heart, you know. When that no longer has a threat value, when that no longer feels like you need to judge yourself or beat yourself up for it, and you can accept, well, that's just how it is in the world, then things begin to change. It's like, oh, I start to laugh at myself again. I think there's a lot in that for you. I think there's a lot, you know, like if somebody had a grabbed a hold of me, I didn't even talk to my teacher about cancer that I had or anything. I kept it pretty quiet because for some strange reason, I felt like if I was to come out and tell people at the healing center that I was going through cancer, it would somehow ostracize me from them because they were all devoted to healing. And obviously I wasn't. There was this kind of disparity there somewhere in my mind. You know, it's stupid. I don't know why I felt that way. Like they were there to love and support me, and I was afraid to let them, you know, in that particular instance. It's like I was determined to do it by myself. I was determined to have faith up until the end, you know. But for each of us, we have these packages, we have these energetic packages that result in some sort of manifestation. Where's Dana? She's not here today. I was going to talk to her too. But we have these energetic packages of denial that show up as a thing, a ring past knot. And sometimes they seem to be really big. Sometimes our problems and our situations that we have to look at seem to be enormous, right? But remember, there's no order of difficulty in miracles, and you're entitled to miracles. The prayer of the heart for the healing of the mind that believes it is separate from God. Father, I need a miracle. I don't know how to heal that. The prayer of the heart for the healing of the mind that believes it's separate from God. It's a good story. But I'm looking for the witness. I'm looking for the witness to the change in my story. I see that in you because I know the truth in you. There is no amber. There's only the light, the Christ, that divine being. Everything else is the witness to the shift and the change in my own story. Colin, you good?
Fuck no.
Good. Hooray. That's honest. Well done. You must have been talking to Tyna.
Oh.
Good. Just breathe. Just breathe. Let it happen. Let it happen. It's always funny when people say, yeah, I'm good. It's like as if there's a moment in time and space where, yeah, I'm good is relevant to anything. It's like, look where you are. It's like I'm on the edge of a volcano and it's about to erupt. I'm on the Titanic and it's about to go down. The only good here I have is realizing that Jesus is my lifeboat. Take a breath and breathe and relax into it. Feel the energy. Don't react to it. Feel it. Let it be there. Just sit with it. You draw your circles like Jesus in the desert. Draw your circle. You sit there and you refuse to adjust. I'm going to sit here with this energy until it's done. Try not to label it. Try not to turn it into a story. Just let it be whatever it feels like. It's only God. It's like trying to bust out of the egg, a little baby chicken, pecking away, pushing. April, what's going on? I've been trying to talk to you all night or all day, night in your.
Okay. I think I'm unmuted. I didn't know how to unmute myself, so.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. I'm feeling, I'm scared to say good, but I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad.
That's okay. What's been going on for you in the last few days?
A lot of laughter. I
Good.
don't know. A lot of laughter. Yeah. It's a good change.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like you've had a bit of a shift or something. There's something.
Yes, a lot lighter. A lot lighter. Yes. Mhm.
Good.
A lot
Yeah.
lighter.
It feels like that. I'm just looking at you and there's like this whole.
Yes.
It's like, Joel, stay in that place, Joel. Stay in the love place.
Yes. Stay in the love zone. Feed the birds.
The love zone. That's it.
Yes.
Stay in the love zone here and now.
That's right. Yes.
Brother Gregory.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go. I gotta go down the mountain and take some stuff for my dad. He's in an old folks' home, so taking some groceries and things. Peace and love. Carrie, don't kill your dog.
Until you do.
Talk to Tina. All right. I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you. It's like it's just energy. It's just energy. Everything's just energy. See it as that. Breathe through it. Let it happen and realize that I'm always the thing getting in the way of that. And ask for help. All right. Remember to ask for help. It's important. Amber, it's important. Noodle, it's important. Ask for help. Make that connection. Every day, all day, every day. The Holy Spirit's purpose is healing, and so therefore that is the only purpose there actually is. If you see another purpose or another thing going on, you're wrong. Find the place where you can admit you're wrong. Find the place where you can admit you're wrong and admit it to yourself. Let things change. All right, I'm out of here.
And love zone, Tina.
Love zone. Tell them about the love
stay
zone.
in the love zone. Yes, love you.
Zone. Carrie was in the love zone today.
Yes, I was stay in the love zone.
Yeah. Love you guys. You guys
Love
are
you.
good. You guys are good. Colin, how you doing? You guys are Amber. I'm so happy to see you.
Tina, I have
one
to
little
tell
email.
you. I have to tell you what happened. Can I tell you?
Of course you can.
Do you have time?
Absolutely. You want to talk alone, me and you?
No, anyone can listen.
Oh, okay. And you guys, okay, cool. I wasn't sure.
Anybody can stay if they
Okay.
want.
I just made them leave.
Oh,
No, I mean, I didn't mean to, but think of my
okay.
question. That's okay. It's recording.
Okay. It's okay. So I'm on this crazy path.